like to introduce you to one of the ladies that's recently been on my Reignite Your Career program, and she's going to tell you the value and the experience that she got from being part of that program. So hello, Fiona.
Hello, Juliet. I'm Fiona. I'm 57 years old. I live in Wandsworth and I have had a 5-year career break.
Fiona, what was happening in your life career before you joined the program?
I am a chartered surveyor, qualified in 1990, and have worked solidly since that time, more latterly as a partner at a small practice in London. I resigned that partnership in 2020 as we were getting into COVID. Since that time, I have advised a family trust to invest £60 million on their behalf, which I have done over the course of the last 4 years. However, that's now come to an end purely because I've completed the task.
And what were your challenges or feelings that led you to consider coaching at this stage of your career?
I think for all the time that I was in my career, I looked outside at others who weren't working and seemingly were having the life that I was missing out on. So when I had a career break, I needed to scratch that itch and go and play more tennis and golf. Over that period of time, I've recognised that's really not enough for me. And so I felt I needed, not just financially, more emotionally, to find something that was going to satisfy me. And therefore I thought I need to get back into a career.
And what made you decide to join this particular program?
Because I liked the fact it was tailored to women of a certain age who'd had a career break, who probably had families. It felt very personal and tailored to me.
If we look at the program itself, what did you find most helpful, surprising, or even eye-opening during the course of the program?
I found that the time that was dedicated to being on the programme meant that you had to look at yourself quite closely and had to answer some quite challenging questions. And you had to give time to do that. And if you weren't on the programme, you wouldn't probably have assigned that time to do it. And it was only through asking myself some of the questions that Juliet poses on the course that you come to find some answers that you possibly didn't expect to find.
And were there any particular tools or exercises or conversations that made the biggest difference to you?
Juliet's style of asking questions and tasks that she set definitely were able to draw out things that I didn't know. But I think it reminded me that I did have things to offer. I wasn't quite dead yet, and that it was worth going again, for want of a better word. And her way of putting people at ease in a group situation, but yet being quite tough and calling you out if you were avoiding answering things that she knew you needed to answer.
How did you find the group coaching environment for you? How did it work for you as working with the other two ladies?
Well, for me, I'm quite an open person, and therefore I have no issues with sharing dirty laundry, for want of a better word. And there is a bit of that going on. For some women, it's probably more challenging to feel so vulnerable. However, it is a very supportive environment, and Julia does make it very clear that it is a safe space and it is not for the next dinner party chat to talk about your fellow people on the course. And it is, it's confidential what's discussed within that environment.
And if we sort of touch into the personal growth that you've had as a result of being on the program, how has your confidence or self-belief changed since doing the program?
I think the program forced me, and I don't find this easy, but it forced me to acknowledge and accept that I had had significant previous career success. Having to acknowledge that is difficult for me, even though people who know me might say that I'm very self-confident. I have confidence, I don't have a lot of self-confidence. But the program was very good at making you acknowledge or accept that actually you had been successful and had achieved a lot. That in itself gives you the self-confidence and self-belief that actually it is worth pursuing something again.
And how has the program helped you reconnect with your strengths, your values, and your ambitions?
Well, having to think about it. There were some very challenging moments where you have to try and think about what your values are. And it's only when you really think about it that you can probably establish what those are. Because in your everyday life, you just don't necessarily address that question. So therefore, you're probably not very true to them. And there was a moment in that where it became very clear that I wasn't living my values.
Can you see a way forward how you can grow your career living in accordance with your values?
Yeah, I think the program made me realize I have a real tendency to shift into victim mode and persecutor. It made me realize that I was doing that in my personal life with my relationship with my daughter, but that enabled me to see that it probably really hadn't helped me towards the end of working within the environment I was working in, which is what led to me wanting to finish. And that actually, had I had a different mindset, I would have tackled the situation differently and probably had a different outcome. So the program definitely helped me understand that outcomes are directly linked to your approach and how you tackle certain situations.
And you've touched on this already, but how would you describe my coaching style?
I would say that Juliet is very warm. She's very encouraging. She's very insightful. She asks the right questions to make you think about things differently. And she then gives you the tool to take positive steps forward. Her delivery is very direct, but also she's very relatable because she's very authentic in the way that she talks, because she uses examples about herself, which aren't always positive, but to show that actually you can turn those situations into a positive outcome. And it's very believable when you're seeing the living proof of that.
And what tangible results have you seen or are seeing or beginning to experience as a result of having got greater clarity from being on the program?
I suppose the personal outcomes have been quicker to see because they are around me every day in terms of my relationships within my own family and close friends. In terms of my career, that's more of a journey because I'm still having to put all the tools in place to actually get myself back out there. And Juliet has helped a lot with that. The nature of me as a person means it takes me a long time because I'm a terrible procrastinator. Find any excuse not to do things that are hard work. But I feel invigorated and I now know how to go about it. Because one of the things that Juliet talked a lot about was what are your strengths and what are the things you like doing in your career versus what did you not like doing. And I think I'd taken for granted that I have a lot of contacts and I find networking very, very easy, but I sort of assumed so does everybody else. So it didn't really come across to me as a skill or a bonus. And so Juliet was able to sort of make me see that. And from that point, I now will be able to tap more into my contacts and my little black book to hopefully get me back into the world of work, which is what I'm looking to do.
You have also got some meetings already set up in the diary, haven't you? So that's.
I have.
Who would you recommend this program to?
I'd recommend it to anyone that's really looking to answer a question in their life about where they want to go in their midlife stage. It's really helpful at helping you clarify to yourself what that is. And you might not get the answer that you thought you were going to when you go into it. And you might end up doing something entirely different. But the time spent in that environment and that very safe environment does help you find clarity about what you want. You know, in practical terms, it's very useful for the tips in terms of actually doing how you do your LinkedIn, your bios, your CVs. But actually, it's so much more than that because there are other opportunities to do that elsewhere. But this is much more about you finding the answers yourself about what you want to do moving forward.
Brilliant. And if you were recommending this to a girlfriend or someone you met at a drinks party or a coffee shop, why would you recommend that they come on this program?
Because I think too many people are stuck in a pretty turgid world at this juncture. I think midlife has so many challenges. You know, generally, if people have been married, particularly, you know, you tend to see people getting divorced at this sort of juncture because suddenly their kids aren't at home anymore and the reason for them staying together might have gone. And there are so many other things that might be changing, you know, with your health, probably got elderly parents. I think what this program does makes you realize actually you are important and you have to focus on what you want, because if you don't look after you, you're not going to be looking after anyone else. So it's brilliant helping you try and find the clarity to do that.
What 3 words would best describe the program for you?
Supportive, empowering, and uplifting.
Brilliant. Thanks, Fiona.